I'd like to thank Dr. Levick for joining in. She's joining from Israel, and we are here at a global conference with over 3,200 people registered from around the globe. So it's pretty exciting. We ran a report recently. We have folks represented from 24 different countries to watch our incredible lineup of speakers at this second annual EMS Leadership Summit. If you haven't already, be sure to get your free pass at emsleadershipsummit.com/, and you'll be able to get that 5-day pass. And today we are here with the renowned Dr. Nadine Levick, a physician, an EMS researcher, and that has been doing some of the greatest work in pre-hospital safety for the last 20 plus years. And yes, folks, she did start when she was 9. And we, again, are here for some of the latest innovations in pre-hospital safety. So without further ado, I am going to turn it over to Dr. Levick.
Thank you very much, Robbie. So first of all, before I say anything more, I just want to thank many people who've contributed to this work, both from the umbrella of the EMS Safety Foundation and the National Academies of Science, Medicine and Engineering, Transportation Research Board's A and B105 EMS Safety Subcommittee. You'll hear a little more about that as we go on. Lots to cover. Fasten your seatbelts. We're about to take off. The future is now. Zoom's asking to start my video. Is there a reason why?
Is that okay? It'll have your slides in your video.
Oh, I see. Okay, good. So the future is now. New world order is upon us. And we're going to be talking about a number of different areas than we spoke about in May: cross-skilling industry and providers, innovation dimensions, and some cheaper, better, safer options, open source and challenges. The future is now. So you're probably all familiar with what's coming down the pike: space-based solar power, Elon Musk's million-mile battery, EVTOL, and XR. And they're definitely not topics we would have thought about even just 3 years ago. It's me checking out the EVTOL vehicle that's actually flown as an unmanned drone, set up to be an EMS vehicle. We'll talk more about that. And that's Andy the robot with some VR goggles. And we're going to talk about XR. So next is now. We've got all sorts of different vehicles. We're using other tools, including unmanned drones, lots of smart technologies, AI dispatch, voice-activated commands, advanced smartphone technologies, XR mixed reality, some innovations in our approach to COVID PPE and any pathogen PPE, and connected health, as well as some touching on wireless patient monitoring and health information exchange. Really, the take-home message is be ready to deploy new and effective tools for both training and operations now. Just wanted to thank Chris, who spoke earlier on his comments about leadership. And leadership is not about a position, it's about professional development. Leadership is a verb, it's an action, it's not a position, and everyone will influence someone else, the good or the bad. I sure want to hope that people take home lots of good stuff today about new solutions for training and education, operational tools, different sorts of transport vehicles, and how to optimize the safety of the ones that we have, some innovation in PPE, and some support tools and adjuncts. I love this quote from Colin Powell, and I said it in May, and I'm going to say it again. It's about leadership and innovation. Being responsible sometimes means pissing people off, by procrastinating on the difficult choices, by trying not to get anyone mad, and by treating everyone equally nicely, regardless of their contributions. You'll simply ensure that the only people you'll wind up angering are the most creative and productive people in your organisation. So what's safety? Safety is being protected against undergoing harm or injury or loss. And innovation is something new, original, and hopefully more effective. Another favourite quote on innovation comes from the president of the Furno Group, Joe Borgraf. He says, to create an innovative and model EMS system, we must engage in a collaborative and cross-functional conversation among the many contributing partners in the EMS industry. EMS suppliers should embrace and drive new innovation to improve the process and efficiency of delivering service while advancing the level and outcome of emergency care. No more important than now. We're going to talk about stuff from low tech to high tech. Not all safety innovation is high tech. Some is low tech. Concept is system of safety, thinking of the overall impact. Small, low-cost changes in practice can have big positive gains. Policies that augment safety, innovation in design from micro to macro, preparedness and training. Safety for your providers, the public and the patient. Safety is a tool to save lives, time and money, but it's got to be evidence-based. We don't want to do Galen's laudable bus problem. Work smarter, not harder. What we aim to do is the right thing at the right place, at the right time, for the right person. How to best achieve that goal now and for the future. You know, here we have a bad situation. The patient was receiving CPR en route, the providers got injured, the patient died. Was that the optimal situation? Our frontier in EMS safety is the interface of disruptive new tech and operational practice at every single level in the EMS system and across all disciplines. In the 1980s, some of us might have remembered that was a telephone. Well, right now, smartphones are very different. In the 1980s, that was an ambulance. And for most of us, for ground vehicles, that's our ambulance now. So the important thing to remember is that the laws of physics are going to prevail whatever we design, whatever system we make. And I just want to bring forward a moment of history. In 1864, this very clever design was put together and patented 150 years ago, that sort of environment. And if you were to survey what would enhance safety of EMS and efficiency as well back then, people might have said more rest stations. They weren't going to say the combustion engine, let alone the hydrogen power EVTOL. We'll talk about that in a moment. So our safety timeline, back in the 60s and 70s, safety wasn't an issue. You know, no gloves, blood all over the place. We sort of knew it was an issue in the 80s and 90s and hadn't quite figured out exactly what to do. But pretty much in the last 10, 20 years or so, we have got good data. We have got good information. Change in adoption challenges are really what we're facing now, and critically so in the past year. So all sorts of things we know all about. We know about safe systems. We know about risk perception, health and wellness, scene safety, some stuff about vehicle design, fleet operations, some stuff about biological hazards and hours of service. A lot of that was covered in the National Academies of Science, Medicine, Engineering's Transportation Research Board Safety Summit. That QR code, which will be in your handout and also on the screen there, will take you to an interactive document that has recordings of everything included. So do take a look at that. It had 8 sections, and that's a resource that's in your hand right now for what we knew in 2012. But now we've got lots of new things that we didn't have in 2012. Tools for managing our fleets we didn't have, diverse vehicles, drones, robotic tools, XR, connected digital health, the cloud and the crowd, things we need to harness, and we need to harness them right away. Very important to remember that ambulance transport safety is part of a system. The overall balance of risk involves the safety of all the occupants in that system, providers, patients, and the public. How does design and change happen in EMS? Historically, tradition is the usual driver. And as we move now towards more systems-based and some higher levels of technology, we're starting to see an increase in the amount of vision and interdisciplinary work. So, this hype cycle is a cycle sorry about that, guys. Cycle that I've used previously, and it has an innovation trigger, a peak of inflated expectations, a trough of disillusionment, slope of enlightenment, and a plateau of productivity, all spread over time. And in 2017, which really was only 3 years ago, autonomous vehicles, drones, and augmented reality and virtual reality were just coming out of the peak of inflated expectations. Fast forward 2 years, drones are moving out of then the trough of disillusionment, and augmented reality and virtual reality, very real things. Artificial intelligence is climbing up the innovation trigger. And here we are now with AI being a huge driver now of what we're going to be seeing and using. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. So I don't need to tell you, we all have a brand new world order. COVID-19, the 2020 pandemic, just published in June 2020, demonstrated there's new patterns of morbidity and mortality that we're facing. New York City described a tenfold increase in out-of-hospital cardiac arrest deaths. And just yesterday, we saw published there are delays in patients getting to hospital and increased death rate in patients with acute coronary syndrome. So when I spoke in May, we started to see deaths of EMS providers from COVID. We saw by April 28th greater than 24, and the deaths continued. And now we're seeing whole EMS services being quarantined after becoming COVID positive as recently as this week. Up until September, there were 36 documented USA EMS COVID deaths and 3 deaths from suicide in New York alone. So solutions are out there: PPE, hand washing, patient barriers. We have a spectrum of high and low tech, and we'll talk about air filtration systems. So this is what an EMS provider looks like in Israel. And this is what you are all familiar with doing. It's not a simple procedure. It adds enormous time and cost and risk. And in some areas in the world, in April, we were already seeing PPE shortages, and we saw agencies having to make their own PPE. And these are now commonplace scenes that really we never had seen up until 2020. So we've seen some creative solutions. Here's how Lowe's Home Improvement have done some cross-skill work to help build some way of trying to improve the safety of transporting patients. We see numerous other devices. Both of these devices are actually Israeli devices and are used routinely here. And here are some devices used in other places in the world. Clearly a little complicated to provide care, very complicated to clean, and probably pretty unpleasant if you're a patient. So how do you decide how to build one of these? Well, you've got to be able to get your patient in and out. You've got to be able to contain aerosol pathogens. It's got to be tolerable for the patient, cleanable or disposable, cost-effective, time-effective. And really, does the whole patient need to be in that thing? And there's lots of questions now being asked about whole vehicle air filtration systems. Do they work in the short time that you actually have a transport? Are they going to be practical and effective and cost-effective, or are they just part of a system of solutions? CDC has some guidelines. Feel free to take a look at them. They just got updated in July 15th, 2020. We have some new tools, some new vehicles, and some new industry relationships. And we have innovation. How's this? Pretty simple, folds, collapsible, covers up the part of the patient that's a problem for you. And this may well provide you with a much simpler, clearly cheaper, and just think about getting a patient in or out of one of those complex, large, patient-containing containers. This is actually from Furno. It's called the COVID Shield. Something has just literally popped out of the research and innovation region. This is actually an Israeli product. Yesterday, October 15th, it won an award. Actually, it won 2 awards. First award for the Israel Institute of Technology Hardware Finals Competition and the BizTech Entrepreneur Program Impact Award. This is actually a PPE contain the patient's aerosol. It's an add-on scavenger mask which actually put over the patient's face. And it's designed to actively minimize the escape of patient aerosolized air and pathogens. So people are thinking out of the box, and I think these sort of approaches are going to have great benefit, not only in the EMS environment, but also in the inpatient environment. And clearly putting one of those on a patient is a lot less complicated and far less expensive than trying to put them inside that huge big box, plexiglass box, and then trying to wash it. Other industry cross-skilling, we're seeing some cross-skilling in a very unusual area. SodaStream, another Israeli company, they call Israel the innovation nation, and after being here for 2.5 years, I can sure see why. So the SodaStream company decided they knew how to manage gas. They put it in bottles. So they actually built an oxygen delivery system, which I think is really cool. So we're seeing very different relationships with industry. So moving away from the area of scavenging and oxygen delivery, we're going to look a little bit at the eVTOL industry. You know, helicopters used to be our primary vertical flight tool. Well, they're not now. There's all sorts of vehicles coming out. This conference just happened on the 4th of October, the eVTOL conference. It was virtual. and that's the electronic vertical takeoff and landing vehicles. And we've seen some unmanned drones. We saw those before. We've seen these sort of vehicles, which are largely still on the designer's table. This is actually a real vehicle that carries a seated person. Could this be the ambulance of the future? Well, maybe, but this just has unfolded. Urban Aeronautics, I've been watching for now 18 years, presented their work many times, speaking in the United States over the last 18 years. They just in August, end of August, have announced a relationship with Hotsola. This is their prototype vehicle in 2002 that I first noticed. And I had a pleasure in last month of going to visit them. They actually have their factory, their institution right down the road from where I live. And this is Urban Aeronautics flying vehicle, and that's me actually there. That's their unmanned ambulance drone vehicle. It's done 300 flights, and the design of that vehicle is very, very advanced. And this group are looking at hydrogen power and hydrogen cells. So there it is up in the air. It has a tiny footprint in that bottom right corner. You can see the footprint of this vehicle. All the rotors are internal compared to a helicopter, and it can land pretty much anywhere. And just the other day, some of you may have noticed that over in the UK, the inventors have decided that they've got a very creative tool for getting a paramedic to an awkward spot. It'll be a while before you see me using one of these. And I just want to briefly touch on some of the work we've done with InDemo, which is really optimizing the environment that you've got today. You don't have to go and buy a vertical takeoff vehicle. You can just do a bunch of very simple things about rearranging your interior environment, and all that's in the public domain. And very simple things like LED lights on the stretcher, so for 20 bucks you don't have to fall over at night. Voice activated commands, and all of that information is available for you online at indemo.info. I want to spend a few moments talking about virtual reality in the virtual world. The term XR, which is really virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, and EMS. And these are technologies that are now, whilst of great value before, are now crucial. We have training schools that can't have classes. We have an increased need for training. We've got people who are now being furloughed due to either illness or positive testing. So we really need to harness absolutely any resource we've got that will give us training opportunities beyond what we've done normally. A few different technologies that are out there. Here's some of them. I won't go through them in detail. You can have a look at the slides later. There's VR training for ACLS that's out there with health scholars. But the next level of VR scenario training is stuff that is authorable by you. You actually can design the scenarios, and this is virtual reality patients. It's designed for EMS providers, and it's training and evaluation tools that you can build just like making a PowerPoint presentation. So this is really a new dimension, and here's some examples of some of those. I have no technology skills, but I can actually build these models and the evaluation tools that go with them, and that's one that I actually built. And then there's also some VR being used as virtual reality first aid training in the community. And as we see the real challenges the whole world is facing with COVID, these tools are really helpful. In Australia, they've been using virtual reality as a violence prevention training tool as well. And here's a group also from Australia, and they are demonstrating mass casualty virtual reality training. It's a group called Real Response. And that's Neil Blackington in the background, who joined me in Dubai for that presentation there. And there's an example on the bottom right of the performance scorecard. So virtual reality can also be used as a design tool for exploring the inside of an ambulance that you want to design, so that you can have a hands-on feel of that. And those tools are out there now, and that's Jason Wheeler from the EMS Safety Foundation, and checking out the virtual reality ambulance design tool. So moving on to AI. AI is clearly a major driver. Here in Israel, there's a strong push for the use of AI in the management of pandemic and emergency response. And here's some example from China and Dubai. and also Copenhagen, looking at detecting cardiac arrest using artificial intelligence and dispatch. Fleet tools, we've got lots of new tools out there for fleet telematics. We really should know exactly what our vehicles are doing and where they are, and what their challenges are. There's some tools I'm going to touch on in a moment that integrate fleet telematics with some of the existing programs that we have, such as Waze. This is one of them. It's Genesis Pulse, which is integrated with Waze, so that as you dispatch your vehicle, you're actually engaging a crowdsourcing tool to help your EMS providers know what they're facing. Very interesting technology, very innovative. And there are other technologies that are engaging bystanders in public access defibrillation. We know from this extremely elegant tool from Dr. Cragholm that bystander defibrillation is the benchmark that is going to give you your best outcome in the setting of cardiac arrest. Particularly seeing the data we saw earlier from New York City, clearly we want to be making sure we optimize these technologies. Wearable tech, I touched on briefly earlier. All sorts of wireless technologies are out there now, and it will probably be a very short time window before most of what we're using in the EMS setting is wireless. Just wanted to make a brief mention of a technology I've been involved in during the COVID period. We've designed a support tool to augment frontline providers, given the sudden push of new surges of frontline providers that may not have the skills that we're accustomed to. And this is the COVID sprint we were a part of at the hospital where I work, affiliated with Ben Gurion. And this is the COVID sprint acute management support tool that we've developed. So that our funding comes through next week for that. So watch this space. Hopefully that tool will be out within the next month or two in your hands. And it's done as an open source code. Here's a few more examples of some global innovation. I always like to mention the Repmobile event, and I love this photograph of Peter Seffrin, Scott Craven, and AJ Heitman all together in Germany looking at innovation. And here we see the upper screen, the old expensive and non-versatile technology. And now we start seeing game-changing smart technology that's better, cheaper, safer, and more versatile. Better designs that we've seen over in Europe, we need to be translating these better designs so that we can have a safer, more operational environment in the United States. Fleet mix, all sorts of vehicles are out there. Motorcycles are clearly being used more and more. Here in Israel, we have a number of fleets of motorcycles. And Mohammed is our first Muslim woman to be a medical motorcycle provider. So Israel's Innovation Nation, Thou Shalt Innovate, is written by Avi Jorishan. Just want to touch on some local innovations here. We have a very comprehensive EMS system that do a lot more than EMS. All the community-based public COVID testing was conducted and is conducted by the Magen David Adom, the EMS service in Israel. We also have a very clever app which is designed for everyone to use and provides video connect, so that if you are at dispatch, you actually see what's going on at the scene. And that's a shot of the MARTA dispatch. Very sophisticated system built from the ground up here. Constant preparedness is a reality. 600 rockets in 36 hours was really annoying last year. Bit of an introduction to how things happen in Israel. This is a very prepared society. Some other creative innovations run very much by one of the leaders at the Magen David Adom, Eli Jaffe. And these are his mass casualty drills. These are the moulage t-shirts, much cheaper than doing moulage, reusable and very effective. They also have some new models in the Corona era where they're integrating 24/7 physician video interactive telemedicine support to some certain cohorts of EMS runs. And this looks like EMS triage, but it's not. I've been in Israel 2.5 years. We've had many elections. And I suppose most elections are close, but ours are very close. And there's actually a voting booth during the COVID period just to show how cautious people are here. And this is some preparedness. No, we didn't have fistfights over toilet paper. the government here made sure that everyone had toilet paper, and these are gift packages for the Passover period during COVID. And Israel is very multicultural. Actually, a quarter of the population are ultra-Orthodox Jews, another quarter are Arabs, and they all work together, and the rest are other things, non-observant Jews, I suppose, and the rest, and they all work together in the same ambulance, EMS service, in the same ambulance. Just wanted to touch on a little bit of innovation in the developing world. I want to thank Eric Kroner for these images. He's working in Chad, and they had some problems transporting patients there. They don't have vehicles, and they had motorcycles. So they would hitch these things up to the back of a motorcycle. I don't know that the safety is so high there, but at least it's a way of getting a patient, a recumbent patient, from point A to point B, and credit to them. And I did touch on this last time. Sometimes innovation can be very simple and very cost efficient. And this is from my colleagues in Malaysia, how they augmented a patient transport unit. So today's challenges are really adopting new technologies and practices that are going to augment EMS performance and safety, embracing some decentralisation of healthcare as the community starts to pitch in. And as we, plenty of presentations, I'm sure, discussing community paramedicine, not my place to do that here. We need to be doing more with less money and less workforce. We need to be cross-skilling not only EMS providers, but industry and the community. And we need to have systems thinking and practice. As I said when I began, ambulance transport safety is part of a system. Overall balance of risk and safety involves all your occupants, patients, providers, and the public. Things can go wrong, but when there are sound safety policies and technologies in place, and the system is well prepared, you can minimise harm, as this amazing day in New York. So, EMS system safety, technical collaboration is key. We cannot afford to play the silo game. It's costing lives, time and money. We must have meaningful, evidence-based approaches to design, operations and policy. And we must be truly driven by outcomes that are meaningful, not just things like response time, but more healthy, well people. I thought I'd put this up. I know we're all sitting here in lockdown here in Israel right now, and many people around the world. And I just thought you might have a little chuckle, but the purpose of this slide is to share this presentation. So in conclusion, the future is now. Safety must be inherent operational process, design and practice. Adoption challenges of new disruptive technologies and applied innovation really do exist, and we have to be focused on addressing that. We are now cross-skilling industry, providers and the community. And just keep in mind always, there is an interplay between patient, provider and public safety. It's a system that's key for effective and safe operational EMS performance. So your electronic handout with the link and all the text slides will be posted shortly at this QR code or at that link. I'll just need a little time to get that set up, so give me an hour or so. And thank you very much for your time. And does anyone have any questions?
Well, Dr. Levick, that was incredible. 140 slides in record time, 32 minutes. So that's really great. I want to thank you for being here. Anyone has any questions, they can comment below. I know we did see some folks. We have somebody joining from Kenya as well to this global conference. We've got folks from Canada. It's always great to see our folks from Canada and around the globe. Again, this has been fascinating to have over 3,200 people register for this event from 24 different countries. We have speakers from 8 different countries. We have 33 speakers, I believe, from 8 different countries. And just to see the growth that we've had in the last year, I want to thank you for your bringing these latest innovations. I've been over here trying to live tweet and take some screenshots and share them out there for folks. So I could not, of course, keep up. And this is really great, especially the innovations of just a simple, well, not simple, but a very easy concept of what looked like an N95 mask filtering any nebulizer treatment.
Yeah, it's I think what we're starting to see, and I think everyone's innovating, but I've got to tell you, Israel has a population of 9 million people, and it's like tiny. And it's physically the size of Lake Michigan, and yet you have a huge volume of innovation occurring here. And COVID is a terrible thing, and it's been a terrible thing for so many people, and tragic. But what it has done is caused a massive innovation push here in Israel. And a number of the initiatives that I mentioned to you came directly from that. And they are just the tip of the iceberg of innovation that has been unfolding here in Israel as a result of the pressures of COVID. So, yeah, I'm very keen to share whatever information anyone wants and follow up with anyone. It's fascinating to see what's happening across this country and pretty much across the world. So happy to take any questions. I left a little time for that. I didn't want to go over time. I know you've got a tight schedule.
And we do have folks joining in from the Navajo Nation in Arizona. So folks are saying it's an enlightening presentation, really fascinated by the nebulizer mask, somebody said. Folks said they got the tail end of this lecture and they could, of course, rewatch it live. All of our lectures are available up at emsleadershipsummit.com. You can register for free to every day we have a new set of lectures going out, masterclass presentations. So it's been very exciting. Today is day number 2, and we've got an incredible lineup of I'll just go over the lineup quickly. Scott Moore with being mindful in the management of an EMS workplace. So mindfulness practices as a manager and leader. Wendy Lund talking about organizational resilience. Wendy taught paramedics for over 27 years, and as a nurse, and she was teaching, I think, a lot of anatomy and physiology, and she recently got her master's degree in mindfulness studies. So she's really focused on the well-being of people, especially in the wake of this pandemic. Barb Patterson talking about effective leadership and being our best selves and how simple it can really be. We have Chris Montana from California and IAMED talking about professionalism in our industry and the principles behind that practice. Of course, Dr. Levick is here live streaming with innovations in the future of EMS, always on the cutting edge of technology, and better, faster, and cheaper, I believe, is her motto.
You got it. Better, safer, and cheaper.
Safer and cheaper. And of course, David Daniels talking about a really difficult conversation in an interview about race in EMS and how real leaders can make real change. So we want to thank all of our speakers. We want to thank everyone for tuning in. And again, folks are just commenting about how amazing the presentation was. And I am going to bring up just a quick overview of a little innovation here. So I will just stop sharing Dr. Levick's screen, and I just want to share a little bit about our virtual exhibitor hall concept. And folks can go to emsleadershipsummit.com/exhibit. And can everybody see the exhibitor hall, Dr. Levick?
Yeah, it looks great.
So thanks again to MediCredits. You can access the app for CME credits, and MediCredits is underwriting our CAPC-approved CME credits. We have the folks at IAMED. They've got a pre-hospital ultrasound course with a ridiculously cheap price. At the time of this recording for the month of October, it's only $79, and they do some phenomenal clinical critical care training. Of course, our sponsors at Zoll. This conference is being powered by Zoll. We thank them for their support, and folks can learn about the latest innovations in their X Series advanced monitor, TBI, dashboard, ventilatory monitoring with their BVM assist technology. We actually have Monday scheduled a lunch and learn. So if folks go to this emsleadershipsummit.com/, exhibit or Zoll-lunch, they can register. The first 100 people who do register and attend that event on Monday, we're going to send a $15 Grubhub food voucher. Again, sometimes it's all about the food too. So we want folks to be able to enjoy lunch, and we're thankful Zoll is helping make that happen. Yeah, again, folks, just check out the virtual exhibitor hall. The Emergency Responder Safety Institute put together a very neat booth. And there's some of their Jack Sullivan little caricatures. They've recorded some excellent resources and they've actually put a whole, their emergency responder learning network, the responder safety learning network, has over 40 different videos and mini courses, and some are focused specifically on EMS operating at highway incidents. This is one of the only organizations in the country that for the last 20 years has tracked hit by and people who were killed, responders who were killed on highway incidents. And that number is unfortunately very tragic. I believe over 44 people hit and killed in the US alone operating on roadway incidents. So for the 2020 EMS Leadership Summit, they put together an entire list of resources and what you can do as a leader to start shifting the conversation in your organization and focusing on safety when operating on the roadway. So be sure to check out the Emergency Responder Safety Institute on the exhibitor hall. And lastly, but not least, Binder Lift, really innovative product where you can put handles on a patient. I love this product. It completely revolutionizes the way people lift patients off the floor. The patients feel safer. They feel lifted with more dignity, and you can get 3 or 4 people around that patient and lift properly without risking your back. You can get a free field trial for 4 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks with Binderlift. They'll ship you and pay the shipping to your agency. And really, once you try it, it's pretty fascinating. So check that out. And we have a 5-day stress less challenge. Suze Jeffries has taught Tai Chi for over 27 years, and she's teaching simple principles every day on how to stress less, balance your life better. And so be sure to check out booth number 4, and you'll be able to sign up for the free 5-day stress less challenge. And couldn't we all use a little bit of that? So, so Dr. Levick, I just want to thank you again. Folks are asking about CME credit. Yes, CME credits are available. Again, if you register at emsleadershipsummit.com, when you register for free, after your free registration, you'll get prompted if you'd like to get CME credits. And we want to thank MetaCredits for doing that. Again, reading some of these comments, such amazing developments, especially in developing countries. They're very excited about that. And Dr. Levick, I'm not sure if you know Duncan McConnell. I know he's been working in the Maldives, in Mongolia, and he did a presentation yesterday that was pretty fascinating, looking at setting up these systems in other countries, and again, not pushing anyone's agenda or their good ideas, but really with respect to the cultures that they're in those countries. So it was a really, really great lecture. All right, folks, I do not see any other questions. Of course, if you're watching this later, you can always comment below. We're happy to answer any questions afterwards. Dr. Levick, do you have any just final parting thoughts for folks that are watching this from really around the globe?
Yeah, I think that, this is really the first presentation I've ever given in this New World Order. When we spoke in May, we thought it was going away, and so many places around the world have now seen this huge surge in pandemic illness. And this is really the first time where EMS is faced with bringing the diseases home in a way they've never had to face before. And the pressures on our frontline providers now are very different. They're always there. We've always got pressures on our frontline providers, but now we really have a level of pressure that is very, very challenging. And I think anything that can be done to make work of frontline providers better, safer, and more manageable also from a cost effectiveness point of view is really, really important. And I think it's very key for us to be looking carefully at what all these options are and looking at them with a systems perspective in mind. What's the big picture? Is it more work for the provider? Getting a patient in or out of one of those big complicated things, is that actually going to cause more exposure than not using it at all and using some other device like that simple face shield that I showed you, the COVID face shield? So I think we now have a pressure to really sit back as an industry and carefully look at what's the best thing to do. We're always looking, but now we have to look in a somewhat different manner and look at what is really the best thing to do for the system. Sometimes less is more, and sometimes it isn't. You know, we talked about everything from some of the highest technologies right down to something that's very simple and basic. So we shouldn't forget the simple, basic tools that are going to help make us keep our lives and our families safe, just because there's, you know, some high technology tool out there that we'd rather have. So simple things are really important. Some of these simple tools that we covered today are really important. Little things like LED lights on your stretcher at night might prevent your guys breaking and girls breaking their ankle or something like that. So I think, you know, very, very important to be a lot more careful than people normally are, to use all the tools that we have available to our providers, and to look at some of these more, particularly the more simple options that can substantively improve the safety of your environment, and some of the more clever ones like the scavenger masks that I think is something that's going to be really helpful for everyone.
Dr. Levick, do you have any thoughts on, of course, you've got perspectives from around the world. You've worked in Australia, you've worked in the States, you've worked in, you've traveled to Germany, you've traveled really Dubai, you're working in Israel right now. Do you have any thoughts on the importance of that governments, or the importance that society has placed on first responders, and seen that change, especially since we have in the face of this pandemic? I think, at least from my perspective, I think government officials are starting to realize the importance of a pre-hospital care, of emergency services, going again beyond just you call, we haul, concepts that have plagued kind of the industry for the years, and the inequities between maybe fire services, between police, and EMS has always kind of been at that lower level, not made a priority. And now we've faced a global pandemic where these providers it doesn't get any closer to the front lines.
Very interesting that you mentioned that. And it is fascinating when you look around the world and just looking from a societal, cultural perception of EMS. You know, I think that Australia is very different to the United States, which is very different to Israel. And I think what we're starting to see, which I think is really fantastic, is a lot of global sharing of really the culture of what EMS is in a society. I mean, here in Israel, when an EMS provider brings, you know, toilet paper and a box of food to you because you can't get out, you know, people here are very respectful of the safety net in society. They're respectful of police, fire, and EMS very equally here, and you know, they all serve in the military. So it's a country where there's an enormous amount of respect for emergency services generally. Similarly in Australia, and I think because of the history and the hierarchy in the United States, there's a lot of difference between police, fire, and EMS, how they're seen by community. And I think what we're going to be seeing now is really positive change in that realm. And I hope it's going to be one of the silver linings of this terrible tragedy of the COVID pandemic.
Well, again, Dr. Levick, I want to thank you for your time. It's always a pleasure to have you as part of our virtual conferences, to reach people that may not have been able to reach this level of information before. So we certainly appreciate your innovations, your thought leadership, and sharing this great information with the masses.
Pleasure. Always a pleasure to come and speak with you guys. And, you know, if anyone's got any queries, just reach out. People are always surprised when I answer my phone. I said, well, you know, who else is going to answer my phone? Please feel free to reach out to me. And I tend to try to answer email pretty promptly too. So I know it's hard to get your hands on a lot of this information, and I really look forward to sharing whatever people need. The EMS Safety Foundation has been supporting folks in EMS for a long time now, more than 12 years. So you might find that that's a good fit for your organisation as well. So thank you very much.